El congresista estadounidense simplemente quería que la PROGRE le respondiera si había una diferencia genética entre hombres y mujeres. Le dijo que no era científica, típico de los progres, y luego acotó que era horrible preguntarse si alguien es mujer como requisito para participar en los deportes femeninos, y lo verás en este video. En él, durante un debate en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos, verás cómo los progres que se autodenominan defensores de los derechos de las mujeres en realidad van a por todo lo contrario. Mira el video completo, especialmente la parte en la que Riley Gaines habla, y dime si te sentirías igual que ella. Pero antes, suscríbete a nuestro canal si te gusta nuestro contenido. Tenemos la meta a mediano plazo de llegar a 100,000 suscriptores. Sin mayor dilación, empecemos.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As an understanding of fairness is one that we almost instinctively learn from birth. Nothing offends a little child more than a sibling getting a treat and he or she doesn't. And America really hates cheaters. Just ask Lance Armstrong. Remember Deflategate? The uncovery of the steroid era was not kind to baseball. That is why beating women in women's sports is so obnoxious to the American public. Not only is allowing men to play in women's sports a flagrant violation of fairness, as well as posing a danger to women in the locker room and the bathrooms and making women feel the opposite of unique, as then anyone can become one, it normalizes and encourages the terrible reality and tragedy of children themselves in a misguided and hopeless attempt to change. The Family Research Council cited the World Professional Association that the health as a source of the following list of awful diseases that cross hormones cause. Here's a list. Blood clots, high triglycerides, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, high red blood cells, a destabilization of some psychological disorders. It defies common sense that improves mental health. For the love of God to everyone who promotes this terrible ideologies, desist. Stop. Every time you claim a man can play a woman's sports, every time you tell a child that they can be whatever you want to be, every time you read a book to a child promoting this propaganda, you are risking the health, happiness, and well-being of our children. Please stop experimenting with our youth. Ms. Gross-Graves, I want to ask you a question. Is the genetic composition of a woman the same? No.
Well, I'm not a scientist. But
well, we're talking about science here, so I mean, I hope they're not the same. So that's why you see all these physiological differences.
If I can answer, though, I mean, if your question is how do you define woman, a woman is an adult female, but there's a lot of variation that goes beyond my level of high school biology.
Well, I just got to tell you, you can't, I'm not looking at a definition, I'm talking about the science. The science genetically is a man, is a different genetics than women. Plain and simple. That's just what it is.
I guess what I would say is that it is, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but it's my understanding that it is more complex than what you are saying, in that there is variation among men and among women, and sometimes more variation among than there is between. Again, I'm not a scientist, and you know, I don't think the panelists are scientists either. It seems like maybe a different scientific hearing that you can.
Well, that's why you have the differences. That's why you see muscle mass. That's why you see tidal volume. That's why you see all these.
Right, there's variation. So, for example, in the WNBA, there's players that are 5'5", and there's players that are 6'9".
So let me.
There's wide variation.
Now that you brought that up, let's talk about that. So the center for the Arizona, the Phoenix Mercury, she had to get a genetics test to prove that she was a woman. Did she not?
You know what?
She did.
And it's actually going to the problem with these sorts of verification and texting. Well, that when I think about what all women, but especially Black women whose bodies have historically fell outside the sort of typical, what's considered the typical norm, the idea that people would have to prove up their femaleness to play, it's horrifying, and it's going in the wrong direction. I don't think anybody wants that, especially for young
I theoretically
children.
disagree with you. I think we've got to be real with people about what their aspects are. Riley, how does playing in women's sports affect? How do men playing in women's sports affect the esprit de corps of a team or the team spirit?
Speaking to, again, my lived experience, first and foremost, it was a major distraction to have a male competing with us at that national championships. It was all we could talk about as a team. We were fearful to go into the locker room. We had to wait and watch if Thomas came out. Then we would enter to avoid going in at the same time. Of course, our sport is very physical, but there is a mental aspect to it. And allowing men into our sports certainly negatively impacted that mental aspect, as well as the physical, of course.
En términos generales, los genes en los seres humanos son muy similares entre hombres y mujeres. Ambos comparten la mayor parte de su material genético, ya que la información genética básica se encuentra en los cromosomas autosómicos, que son comunes a ambos sexos. Estos cromosomas contienen genes que codifican proteínas y desempeñan roles fundamentales en el desarrollo y funcionamiento del organismo. Sin embargo, hay diferencias en los cromosomas sexuales. Las mujeres tienen 2 cromosomas X, 20, mientras que los hombres tienen un cromosoma X y un cromosoma Y, XY. Aunque la mayor parte de la información genética en estos cromosomas es similar, hay algunos genes específicos en el cromosoma Y que codifican características sexuales secundarias y determinan el desarrollo de características masculinas. La gran mayoría de los genes en hombres y mujeres son idénticos. Pero hay algunas diferencias específicas relacionadas con los cromosomas sexuales que contribuyen a las diferencias biológicas y de desarrollo entre los sexos. Genes en los cromosomas sexuales también influyen en el desarrollo de características sexuales secundarias, como la distribución del vello corporal, la voz más profunda en los hombres debido a la longitud de las cuerdas vocales, y otras características físicas que difieren entre los sexos. Las características sexuales secundarias son rasgos físicos y fisiológicos que se desarrollan durante la pubertad y distinguen a hombres y mujeres, pero que no están directamente relacionados con los órganos sexuales reproductivos. Estas características son influenciadas tanto por factores genéticos como hormonales. La pubertad en los hombres conlleva un aumento en el crecimiento del vello facial, barba y corporal en áreas como el pecho, abdomen y espalda. Durante la pubertad, la laringe de los hombres experimenta un crecimiento, lo que lleva a un cambio en la voz y a la adquisición de un tono más profundo. Los hombres tienden a experimentar un aumento en la masa muscular y un cambio en la estructura ósea durante la pubertad, contribuyendo a una figura más robusta. El cartílago tiroides en la laringe aumenta de tamaño en los hombres, lo que resulta en la prominencia conocida como la manzana de Adán. Las diferencias en las características sexuales secundarias entre hombres y mujeres pueden tener implicaciones en la fuerza física. Algunas de estas diferencias están relacionadas con la composición corporal, la distribución de la masa muscular y las características óseas, lo que puede influir en la fuerza relativa entre los sexos. Ello les da a los hombres mucha ventaja a los hombres en este ámbito. ¿Y tú qué opinas? Déjamelo saber en los comentarios. Y aquí culmina este video. Si te gustó dale like, comenta y comparte. Gracias, hasta luego.